is Friday, July the 26th, and it looks like maybe this whole ceasing of activities is about over. So take a deep breath and enjoy yourself. The weekend looks like it's going to be beautiful. And we're going to look at the history of women filmmakers, film directors, and find out exactly how they have come up through the ranks and how many of them there are, and a lot of history. So Jane, take it away.
Well, there are so many that I've decided to focus in on two of the key ones, with some words about a third one if we have the time. Yes, there were many, many, many women in the film industry.
But we never hear of them.
But we never hear of them, and this is the same phenomenon, you know, the whole Me Too movement.
Right.
That involved not only hanky-panky, but it involved just simply sweeping things under the rug.
No, we need the recognition just as regardless of what gender people are.
And it even happened to me once in a professional sense. Things I would be asked, how would I solve this? How would I do this? Make up a draft? I'd make up a draft, only to find out later, because the secretary was on my side, that the boss was putting his name on it, and I was, wiped off the slate.
Oh dear.
So of course I complained about that.
Yes, I imagine you did.
But we did. I decided to settle upon two these very important women. The very first one was a French woman, and her name was Alice Guy, G-U-Y, and she later married a man named Herbert Blanchet, so sometimes her name is given as Alice Guy Blanchet, Alice Guy Blanchet. But she was born in France, a French woman, and in 1873.
Oh.
So when the movie industry really began to take off in the 90s, she was a young woman. Well, she had a job as secretary to Léon Gaumont, and that's spelled, it looks like Gaumont in English, Gaumont. And he actually had a company that was making cameras, but he switched around 94, 95 to getting into this new film business. Mm-hmm. So of course, there she was, right at the heart of this developing thing, and she just, like a sponge, she just soaked up all this information on all the aspects of this burgeoning industry, and was interested in them all. She was, as we say, her name was swept under the rug pretty much, but you will occasionally see a movie now on Turner Classic Movies, for instance, an old movie, and you'll see Gaumont, you'll see that it came from Gaumont Productions. Mm-hmm. So she started in 1895 or so. They made these little movies, I think they're sometimes called arcade movies, because you'd go to an amusement park or something, for a penny, you'd look in and you see one scene or something like that. Mm-hmm. But she made what is considered to be the first movie with a narrative, a sequence in it. And we will, in a little while, take a look and actually see what that looked like.
Wonderful.
So she got going in that in 1895 and expanded into all these other aspects of the business. By 1905, she became so good at it, she was producing two reel movies a week.
Wow.
And of course, these were not your huge productions of later days.
Right.
But she was producing, and it was good stuff. You will see the quality of it when we look at a couple of clips there. She was doing this excellent job, and she was in charge of production. All these other people who were actually doing a lot of legwork, because Gaumont was expanding. It was a successful company. She was in charge of them all. So in 1907, she married this man, Herbert Blanchet. And Blanchet was not really a technical person in the films or an artistic person, but he was a manager. Gaumont had stations and connections all over, and for the German and English sides of the business, he was the one who was in charge. Well, she went on making movies, and in 1907, they decided they would marry. And in 1909, they went off to the United States. She wanted to get over there, get in the expanding business there, and maybe she was a little tired of not getting public credit for things. But they went over anyway to New York, and she formed her own company with Solax Films, and you'll see that at the front of beginning of one of ours here. But she formed this company, and she had studios over in Fort Lee, New Jersey, and she maintained a connection with New Jersey for all of her life. Which was a long one. She lived to be 95 years old.
That was long at that time.
But she anyway produced these excellent movies over there. In about 1910, things got much more. She really was doing even better, if that was possible. But all through the war years, World War I, she succeeded, great success financially, and she was recognized as being really somebody in this business. Mm-hmm. Of course, she had contacts with D.W. Griffith and some of those people. Cecil B. DeMille, I guess, who then blossomed out on the West Coast. But by the end of the teens, she had, it was kind of winding down, and she decided she was going to get out of the business, at least temporarily. She went back to France. Meanwhile, she had gone to the West Coast. She closed her operations in the East there, went out to the West Coast and had several jobs as director for films. But she was capable of, she was director, producer, she wrote scripts, she handled the costumes and sets, did everything, casting, whatever it was, she was into it. And even, I think I'm not sure if she was the one, but one of these ladies anyway, actually developed film. So the technical side, she had not left that aside. And you'll see it in her pictures, camera angles and things. She was very good. But she divorced, poor Herbert, and went back to France. And she stayed in France for almost 40 years, oddly enough. But then she came back to the United States. Of course, the war, she went through the war in France. She probably got sort of stuck over there when that came up in the 30s. But she came back anyway and died in 1968. She lived way on till that time. Now, pictures, please. First picture will show Alice. This is on the occasion of her being awarded mention in the New Jersey Hall of Fame for history things. Woman. Some museum took that up, and you see she looks French, I think, actually, in that somehow. In the next picture, we see her at her prime. This is in the 19-teens, and she's well dressed and looking on top of that. And indeed, she was on top of the heap.
I would imagine.
Well recognized and making lots of money and all that. Next picture will show us her shooting on site or on location. She gets credit for being the first person to do that. Otherwise, these people hold up in studios, and sometimes you see in funny movies like The Perils of Pauline, you see how they have the sound stage just chock-a-block with only a wall in between. Well, in her case, and you see her up there at the top of this camera shooting, and the other people are hanging around there. The next picture is still shot from the first African American movie. She was not African American, but the entire cast was African American. And this A Fool and His Money was an old theme. If you search that, you find that everybody and their Aunt Louise made a film on the early ones on A Fool and His Money, and roughly the plot. But one more picture from that shows the quality of the productions, even at that time. This was in 1907, I believe, that she made this. And you can see some of the detail when you look at a print of this. in the lower right corner, you see there's a kind of a dais, and there's a pattern on it there. And in the upper left corner, there's a pattern in that decoration at the back. And this is very good photography. And she knew how to set up the shots and do the whole thing. So that's some stills. Now, she made, the first thing she made in 1895 was on one of the old myths of where babies come from. And please let us see the first 50-second shot here of
1895?
1895, the Cabbage Fairy. La Fée aux Choux. And here's this lady in the cabbage patch. And you notice the quality of and outcomes, and those are real tiny babies because you see their arms and legs going in the foreground. She kind of prances around. Some of the versions on YouTube have set music to the background, which was indeed done fairly early in the game. But here she is, beautifully dressed.
Well, that's where they got the idea of the Cabbage Patch dolls.
Well, maybe, yeah. But that was one of the things, storks brought babies, or they found in the cabbage patch, or whatever. So this went on for 1 minute, and that was very important, a very opening kind of a thing, game-changing, as they say.
I can imagine.
Now, another one, I want you to look at this one. This one comes a little later, in 1913, I think, and it's equally on a par with Charlie Chaplin or Laurel and Hardy or any of those people who were funny people. This one will take 3 minutes, and you see here's a guy who's apparently pasting billboards up or something, and that's glue. That's a pot of glue. And he's cleaning off his sticks there, and he's putting them up there to dry on the tree. Now, up come a couple of ne'er-do-wells, and they chase him away, and they take over this pot of glue. And you see they're stirring it up, and he's going to pick it up, and away he'll go. And this is pure slapstick comedy of the best kind. And anybody who looks through this whole thing, this whole 3 minutes, and doesn't laugh, I think needs some help, because it's really, and part of the slapstick. So you know what's going to happen here.
Oh, yeah.
When you see this guy spreading the glue on the step. And so he hardly puts it down, and along comes a lady. Wait, that's right, he's going to put some on the bench. You know exactly what's going to happen. So he walks off and finds some other places to do his thing. And along comes this lady, gets into trouble. Help, help. So the door flies open. The man comes out on the balcony. And again, you know what's going to happen. But still, it's funny when it does. And again, beautifully photographed and set up. So now he's stuck. So what they finally have to do is just get out of their shoes. And then he has to slide down the side so he doesn't step on it again. And of course, sitting there waiting is this bench that you know is also covered with glue. Well, sure enough, they go off, try to get help, I guess. Two nice ladies come along, sit down and chat, and they chat. And out here's a guy with a bicycle, and again, you know, but off he goes. Now the ladies, and she had an eye for the shot, because see, you have this thing here with the skirts sticking out below and the feet sticking out below the skirts, and again, kind of moving around, frustrated. And the original two come back and try to help them. Now, meanwhile, of course, this bicycle was waiting for the guy to come out and get back on his bicycle. So, sure enough, yeah, they're stuck there. They can't get off. Here he comes, and off he goes. And he's not a professional bike rider. You can tell he's kind of wobbly. So before long, you know he's going to fall off. And sure enough, he falls off, and here's this one of these no good nicks with his, but he sits in the bucket.
Oh,
So here you have the fellow on the bicycle stuck to the seat, and the other one crawling around. Now, Charlie Chaplin couldn't have done any better, I
No.
think, for making people laugh than this. And perhaps I shouldn't have been giving a commentary, because if you just see this, the first time you see this, it's pretty funny. So those are examples of some good work right off the bat.
Right.
Now, a contemporary of hers, but actually somewhat different and extending a little farther, was Lois Weber. And we're doing this today at the request of somebody who had seen something about Lois Weber not too long ago, maybe along the lines of women getting recognized for their jobs. Lois Weber was American, born in Pennsylvania. She too was born in the 1870s, but 6 years later than the other one, 1879. And she was a child prodigy on the piano. And she had gone as far as her touring the United States, a concert tour of the United States in the 1890s when she was just in her teens. But by the end of the century, she had either changed her mind or things had moved on, and she went on the stage in New York. She went to New York, and there she did various acts and things on the stage. And many of our directors, particularly the women, started out as actors. So they actually knew a great deal
they knew
about
the staging and this kind of thing.
how things could best be staged and acting natural about it. Both of these women, Alice and Lois, had be natural was one of their watchwords.
Right.
Because you know how many of the old movies are just corny
Oh, yeah.
and really just jerky and funny, and the photography, they don't have enough pictures per motion. But Lois, please, let's see next picture for Lois Weber. This is a little poster of one of her things. It's just title of one of her pictures, What Do Men Want? She made between 200 and 400 movies. Alice made 1,000 or more.
Wow.
Some of which have survived, but the old nitrate film was very delicate and very flammable. And a lot of it got burned up in fires, serious or otherwise, in storage, if the storage thing burned down. But here she is anyway, and she's saying that she is proud of her productions. And you see at the lower left there's her seal. And there's this lamp, the genie's lamp, and it has Lois Weber Productions on it. The next picture, here she's some years later, she's sitting before a monster typewriter. This illustrates the fact that she wrote a great many and did the scripts and everything of the things she did. So she was in all aspects of it, so she understood all aspects of it, which was one reason why some of these women were so good at it. The next picture shows her again with one of her male co-workers there. She was in charge of productions. The caption for this said they were shooting, so I'll take them at their word. Somebody suggested perhaps they were really looking at things, looking at clips of, looking at the whole thing, editing. I don't know, but at any rate, there she is, and you can see she has her thing with her name on it, Lois Weber, a very, very handsome woman, and did actually appear in some of her pictures. She too had good years during World War I, very successful. She married one of her co-workers named Phillips, what was his last name, Stammy or something like that. And he didn't do an awful lot with it. The film company wore down gradually toward later on, but she was hired by many other film places in Hollywood. She has, in fact, a Star of Fame on the Walk of Fame in Hollywood. So She did well on that score. Let's look at a picture, a next picture. Oh, maybe that was the end. I think we looked at the last one for her. But some of the things that she started that nobody else had done were close-ups, and also she filmed on location. She was just in every single aspect of the production. Of the movies she made, only 20 survived. 20 were preserved. You can see some of these things, many of these things, on YouTube. I don't know who put them on, but somebody has preserved a lot of them and put them on. And it's a shame that there aren't more. But that's kind of the way it went. But she now we have a suspense. Well, let's just mention first of all that she did affiliate with one of the major studios, in Universal Studios, and I guess they were operating in the East somewhat in early days, but she wound up forming her own company, and then she would distribute and market through Universal. Oh. And this is still a habit today. You still see that pictures marketed through one of the big ones. And she stuck with them throughout her productive career. But let's take a look, please, at a clip now. We're going to have a clip of her suspense. Now, in this picture, you see she has three things going at the same time. She was one of the very first people to do this, and the effect is entirely different because you see everything going on. You see somebody up in the left is trying to break into the house, and then on the right, there she's frantically calling on the phone, and that is Lois Weber herself. She's frantically calling on the phone for help, and then in the first one, you see the guy cutting the phone wire, so you know. And this is a direct forerunner of Barbara Stanwyck's famous movie, where she's sick in bed and her husband, who wants to kill her, has gone off somewhere with his sweetheart, leaving her alone. And she can't walk, she can't get out of bed. But she realizes the phone, I guess she tries to call. And what she gets on the phone is these sinister, we're coming to get you, and so on. Mm-hmm. So the direct forebear of something like that. Well, we don't actually need to go on with we can end the clip there. But you can see from that little she was also into social messages. She realized the bad things about society and wanted to correct them. One of her most famous pictures, I think, was one, Where is My Child? And this addressed the problem of abortion and unwanted pregnancy, and what happened to the women and to the children and just society as a whole. It got callous to these things. Mm-hmm. She had another famous one that was about this phenomenon of the upper crust, the rich people, the first class falling in society, losing their money, and then lower classes coming up, nouveau riche and all that. And she has one, I looked at part of that one, a very, very telling one there, where she has the old people in the family trying to control what's going on with the younger people, and the daughter is being courted by somebody, played by Louis Calhern when he was very young. I don't know if any movie fans recognize him, but he's a big, tall man. He later played Supreme Court Justice Holmes and roles like that. But he had a parrot beak of a nose and a very distinctive voice. But he comes in as the nouveau riche. So she shows that problem, that tug of war in society. And she went into many others. Now, those two, in a way, kind of led to each other. In a way, were contemporaries, both trending. And the most modern one we have of that, for my money, was Ida Lupino.
Oh.
And I don't have any pictures of Ida Lupino. I think she's sufficiently well known. But she was a champion of what became known as the film noir. Or I shouldn't say champion, she wasn't out ballyhooing for it, she was just doing it. It's the kind of mysterious, usually crime or gangster picture. And much of the photography is muted, it's dark, it's dusky. You have very few cheery morning scenes with the sun beaming down on the blue sky. But she became the female champion of that picture, and right up there with the men who made these pictures. She made one, oh dear, what was the title of that one? I forgot the title, but it was a supreme example. She also made the one with famous one, Humphrey Bogart, High Sierra, in which she played the role of one of the women in it. She made one called The Bigamist that I think is a superb example of filmography. And in this picture, it's not the man exploiting the women, or the women exploiting the man, getting money out of him and marrying for money. No, it's the man. And he's decently married. He's in the advertising business. And Joan Fontaine played the first wife. And they are unable to have children, or she is. And that's a sort of a backdrop. He goes off on business. He travels all over California on business. And on his birthday one night, he's lonely, and he goes to a Chinese restaurant. And the waitress is played by Ida Lupino. And she's very attractive, and she's kind of downhearted, not a flashy person. But at any rate, he takes her out after she gets off work, and of course, push leads to shove. And he doesn't know it, but she's pregnant. Well, he goes back home, and then he finds out when he's down there on business again. So what he does is marry her, and so you have the bigamist.
So now he has two wives.
So now
we're down to the last 1 minute now. You have to be sure to bring this together.
Well, she ends it, and again, like many of the movies, Lois was like this too, Lois Weber. You don't have a sugar-coated happy ending,
right?
Which a lot of the old ones did. Well, a lot of the modern ones did too, but really no more. They don't tend to do that as much. But she brings the two women together, and the child, and you have a feeling that in the subsequently, the first wife who has the money in the business is going to either take the other woman in with her, or anyway, she's going to support her and the child. Mm-hmm. But the way it's filmed and the way it's film edited because something was turned over to women early, to taste, in other words. They show taste. Even on that little scene in the cabbage patch, you see good taste shown in it. So I think it's a very interesting subject, and I was glad I was asked to look into it because I hadn't realized quite the extent. Right. And today, of course, there are a lot of them. They aren't a dime a dozen, but there are many. And they're certainly holding their own.
That's right. So we really need to be aware of it.
Go to the movies.
And back them. Okay.